Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're really excited to have this information session on the CARSI Grants Program. We're going to talk all about details of the program, how you apply, answer your questions, and go through some frequently asked questions. And so I'm going to be doing this chat in English, given that all of the materials that you need to submit if you're interested in applying need to be in English, your proposal, the supporting documents. Also, should you be awarded funds, CARSI funds, you will then, throughout the life of the project, have to be in communication with Roberto and myself in English. And so we're going to practice our English today. Y bueno, para hablar brevemente en español, vamos a hacer el taller hoy en inglés, dado que las organizaciones que tienen interés en el programa CARSI tienen que hacer la propuesta, enviarnos todos los documentos en inglés. Y si ustedes reciben fondos del programa CARSI, durante la vida del proyecto van a enviarnos informes en inglés, estar en comunicación con el equipo de CARSI en inglés, pues por eso hacemos este evento anual en inglés. So before we really get going, I'd like to introduce my fantastic co-host, Roberto Soro, who is the Grants Officer Representative for the CARSI program.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Jesse mentioned, I serve as the Grants Officer Representative for the CARSI program here in the U.S. Embassy in San Jose. Today, Jesse is going to tell us about the opportunity, about what type of proposals we're looking for, give some details on how to apply, tell us how these proposals are selected, and where to learn more information about the opportunity. In the meantime, please feel free to put all your questions in the chat. We will have extensive time to go through them. And with that said, Jesse, can you please tell us more about the CARSI NOFO?
Great. Yes. Thank you, Roberto. To start off, I'll let you know what CARSI stands for. It's the Central America Regional Security Initiative, and a NOFO is a Notice of Funding Opportunity. So we have posted in grants.gov this year's Notice of Funding Opportunity for the CARSI program, and it provides all of the information you're going to need to learn about this grants program. So if you take away one aspect of advice from today's session, it is to please review that Notice of Funding Opportunity, or the NOFO. You can find it on grants.gov, on the U.S. Embassy's funding website, and later in the program, we'll give you instructions on how to go there. But all of the information we share today, all of the questions you're going to have, pretty much all of those answers can be found in that NOFO. So we highly encourage you to read it. And the CARSI program helps advance U.S. objectives to improve governance in Central America and increase economic prosperity. And so the CARSI program, we've been doing this in Costa Rica for over a decade. We funded 50 plus projects in every corner of Costa Rica for over $12 million of support. And so for the past few years, the focus dictated to us from US Congress has been on governance programs. And we'll talk a little bit more about governance and what we look for in a proposal a little bit later in the program. But governance gives us flexibility to fund all different types of programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. That is very helpful information. One of the best advice we can give today is conducting a thorough read of the NOFO. It has all the details that an applicant needs to know. And if you need further questions, then we'll be here to answer. Can you now tell us what are we looking for in these proposals?
Okay, great. Thanks, Roberto. And to reiterate, what we're looking for in the proposals can be found in the NOFO. But we are looking for strong, impactful proposals that will improve governance in Costa Rica. And governance is a broad term. It's incredibly important. What does that mean? It really gives your organization a lot of flexibility in the type of proposals you can submit to the CARSI team. So improved governance could be a federal or municipal government improving their services to the citizens. It could be programs that increase transparency, better the public's faith in the government's ability to do its job. There's a bunch of different programs that can improve governance, but that's essentially what we're looking for. Better services for the population, more transparent, accountable governments, and better livelihoods for Costa Rican citizens. Some of the other things we include in our NOFO are areas of interest in Costa Rica. So we always include a recommendation that proposals focus on vulnerable populations outside of the San Jose Central Valley or the GAM. And so that's not a requirement. We've funded proposals in the past that support citizens throughout the country or in the Central Valley, but we'd really like to support those populations outside of the Central Valley, as that's in line with U.S. objectives. Programs should increase government's transparency and accountability towards the citizens. One way of doing that is through e-government projects or digitalization of government services. I think all of us have waited in line for some type of trámite or application, whether you're registering a small business or whatever it might be. So e-government initiatives that make those processes more efficient and more transparent are really strong CARSI proposals. Some examples of projects we've done in recent history are projects that use technology to improve transparency of public procurement. Again, this allows the citizens to see what their government is spending money on and helps fight corruption. So that's a strong form of governance. This year in the NOFO, we included the potential for nonprofit organizations to work with municipal governments, also on increasing public transparency. Anything that has to do with fighting corruption at a municipal level or at the national level are great examples of potential CARSI programs, because that increases efficiency and improves government services. This year, we also added an interest in climate governance projects. Projects that will help either the federal government or municipal governments adapt to climate changes and all of the challenges that brings to governments and to the citizens. One thing that we're not looking for are any projects that have to do with law enforcement. So other sections of the embassy have programs that support law enforcement. CARSI funds cannot be dedicated towards activities related to law enforcement. Thanks, Roberto.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Before we move on to the next item, I'm seeing an increased numbers of users in LinkedIn. Could you please just provide us with a quick summary of the program for those who just joined us?
Sure. For those who just joined, really quickly, the CARSI program is a grants program offered by the U.S. government in Costa Rica. We currently have our notice of funding opportunity open, and that means we put out on April 1st the information that shows what we're looking for in proposals, and so we're hoping to receive those proposals by June 1st, and we'll be making funding decisions on these governance proposals. Thanks, Roberto.
Thank you so much. Can you please give us some additionals on the awards? What's the size that we expect? When our proposals due? You just mentioned June 1st, but can you please provide us a little more details on the awards?
Sure. So for details like the meat and potatoes on the awards, all the logistics involved, this year we're expecting to award upwards of $500,000 or $500,000 to CARSI proposals. The CARSI application period is open. So we published the notice of funding opportunity on April 1st, and that will close on June 1st. And it closes June 1st at midnight Eastern Standard Time. So we ran into some issues last year because applicants were trying to submit it at Costa Rica, midnight time in Costa Rica. So please do your best to get your applications in, your proposals in grants.gov by the June 1st deadline. We are expecting to fund anywhere from 3 to 5 projects this year. The maximum award will be $250,000. These programs, if they should be selected by our expert panel, will start on September 30th of this year with a maximum length of 2 years. And we have already closed our period for questions. Of course, keep your questions coming today in the Facebook Live event. But our official window for questions to our email, the San Jose CARSI esf@state.gov email, closed on May 1st.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Could you please now tell us additional details about who is eligible to apply for these program, which type of organizations may apply?
Great, absolutely. One thing we should clarify. So when we talk about governance projects, you're typically thinking about the federal government or the municipal governments that are, the main stakeholders in improving governance. But the CARSI program is a little unique in that our funding does not go directly to governments. We work directly with nonprofit organizations or civil society organizations. They can be registered in Costa Rica. They can be registered in the US or internationally. We can also work with academic institutions, but we don't work directly with governments. So the program works in that we work with a nonprofit partner, and they're the main POC for the embassy. They're the ones who receive the funds, and they typically have developed a proposal in partnership with one government institution or multiple government partners that they will work with to implement the project. But again, the eligible organizations can be found in the notice of funding opportunity, and our relationship is directly with those nonprofit organizations. And also, if we have any current CARSI awardees out there or former CARSI awardees, you're of course welcome to apply again.
Thank you so much. Okay, so let's say I am an NGO interested in applying in the opportunity. Can you tell me more about the application process itself?
Sure. And, I'm going to mention a lot of links right now, and we'll be able to put those links on Facebook Live in the chat later today. But again, the notice of funding opportunity is live. It closes on June 1st. That date is coming up, so hopefully you've already started on your proposal. But you can find it at the U.S. government or at the U.S. Embassy website in the funding opportunities page. So if you go to the embassy's main page, you click on Embassy, then you click on Learn More about the Embassy, then Funding Opportunities, you will find our NOFO and a link to grants.gov. You can also go to grants.gov, the website we use to receive your application. So we don't receive your proposal via email. We receive it through grants.gov. And again, we'll post a direct link, but you can go to grants.gov to the homepage, click on Search Grants. Then in the upper left-hand corner, put Costa Rica in the keyword, and then it'll be the second opportunity listed. And it should show a posted date of April 1st of 2022 and a closing date of June 1st, 2022. This is also a great website to find other funding opportunities from the U.S. government in Costa Rica. And so once you go to the notice of funding opportunity, that will have all of the information on what you need to include, what documents are required, and all of the information you need to submit to us as part of your proposal package. So a little bit more on the logistics. There are a lot of requirements that you need to do before you can apply. Again, we're already in mid-May, so hopefully you've already found some government partners that you're thinking about partnering with on this project. Hopefully you've already started drafting the proposal. But things you need to do ASAP, if you haven't done, are do 2 registrations online because they can be timely and they're a requirement before you can submit your proposal. So those are called a unique entity identifier number, which is issued via sam.gov. sam.gov. So you need to register there first and get that UEI number. And then if you're a non-US nonprofit organization, you'll also need something called an NCAGE registration. It can be timely to register. It can be confusing to register. This is not an area where Roberto and I can help. Those are separate websites, separate entities. So, if you're running into issues registering, which can take a few hours, you need to work through their help desk. And we encourage you not to save that for the last second and to please do it right away. And so, again, we can post information on that sam.gov, the UEI number, and the NCAGE. But once you have those registrations ready, you should be ready to apply. One other thing I want to add, there's no cost to apply. For the NCAGE number, there's no cost to register at sam.gov to get your UEI number. Some organizations online will offer to help you with your application. They charge a fee. That's up to you whether you want to do that or not. But the actual websites themselves will not charge you. And if someone is saying that there is a required fee, that could potentially be a scam. Lastly, for those who have applied in the past, something new as of this year is a DUNS number is no longer required. So if you've never applied and you don't know what a DUNS number is, don't worry about it. It's no longer a requirement. But if you're wondering why on our NOFO this year, we are not requiring a DUNS number, then it's just been a change. So don't worry about it anymore. And then I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to switch over and ask Roberto a final question before we go to your questions. And that is, Roberto, can you share with the group what our evaluation process is? So we've talked a lot about the logistics, but now once an NGO has submitted a proposal, what happens next?
Okay, thank you so much, Jesse. Those are very helpful suggestions for any applicant out there. Regarding the evaluation process, proposals go through a technical review. Only complete proposals will be reviewed. This is very important. And at intake, we'll ensure that the package is complete. After the proposal passes the technical review, it is submitted to a panel review. And lastly, the panel will review the proposals and look if it matches the main objectives of the NOFO. That is why it is very important to conduct a thorough readout of the NOFO and what we stated for the current year.
Great. One thing to add there is once you submit your application before June 1st or by June 1st, you might not hear from us again for a few months because we have to do an initial intake and then we have our review panel throughout the summer. You will be notified likely in September if you are a finalist to be funded. And then if you have not been selected, we'll send you a note after the projects have been selected. So just know that once you submit the proposal, feel free to write us and confirm that we've received it, but you won't be getting feedback from us for a few months.
Thank you so much, Jesse. We already have some questions both from Facebook and LinkedIn, and I will start with Margarita. Margarita says, hey, our company has not achieved the unique entity identifier. Can you help us?
Great. Great question, Margarita. Roberto is our UEI expert, so I will turn it over to him. I'll just add, again, that is not a process the embassy can help with. That's done by an outside organization, but Roberto can give you a little bit of guidance on that process.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. So we ask you to start with the registry in SAM.gov, and then when you have all the information posted in grants.gov, it will automatically generate the code that is required. So I don't know what's the specific issue that you're facing, but it is automatically generated in SAM.gov once you enter all the required information.
Margarita, I'll just add, if you're running into issues on SAM.gov, they've got a contact us section for troubleshooting. I would recommend getting in touch with them ASAP to work through the issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa is asking through Facebook. Good morning. I am Melissa Villalobos from Red International. In the NOFO, it is stated that these proposals will assist or complement central, local, municipal governments' efforts to increase improved services. However, it is also stated that proposals cannot provide direct support to the central, regional, or municipal governments of Costa Rica. Hence, it is not clear if we can propose to work with local governments, for example, in trainings. Could you kindly clarify these opposite arguments?
Great. Thank you, Melissa. Excellent question. We get this question a lot. We tried to go over it earlier in this program, but I'll try to reiterate it because it's confusing, right? But essentially what it means is municipal governments, federal governments, ministries cannot directly apply for CARSI funds, right? They can't submit their own proposals, and then we end up working with those institutions and funding them directly. Instead, as you see in the NOFO, there are eligible organizations. And so that would mean, I think your RET International, you would apply, you would propose working with a handful of municipal organizations, federal government ministries, whatever it might be. And, we expect that you have letters of support from these government agencies that say they're going to work with you on the proposal. You are more than welcome to provide capacity building or provide technology tools to those government organizations to work with them, provide trainings, bring in experts to do training so that they can improve the governance that they're offering the citizens. But we won't be working directly with those governments. We will be working with your organization. The funds will go directly to you. And then, and again, that shouldn't be turning around and then you're providing a check to the government. That's not how it works. Instead, we have come up with this training schedule. We're providing some technology that's going to help so-and-so institution do this job better or coordinate better with other government institutions, technology tools. So again, that hopefully that clarified a little bit.
Thank you so much, Jesse. We have a question from Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos says, how can we access the programs outside the central area, San Jose? We're an association of art trying to give access to the arts to population in social danger in the south of Costa Rica.
Great, Juan Carlos, excellent question. And as I mentioned earlier, we really do look to prioritize funding programs that are going to impact communities outside the Central Valley. So if your program is focused on a population in southern Costa Rica outside the GAM, that's fantastic. And we will gladly review your proposal. Now, one thing I'll add, just briefly seeing your question and not knowing the details of your proposal, remember that the focus is on governance, right? And so sometimes we get proposals that are economic development, community development related proposals, which might be excellent projects and might have a huge impact in Costa Rica. But our panelists are going to be reviewing the requirements of the Notice of Funding Opportunity, and they're going to want to make sure that your project has a really strong governance component. Mm-hmm. And again, so, improved government services, improved transparency, improved accountability, so that's what we're looking for. And we would love to do those programs outside the GAM. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jesse. We have a question from Gloriana. She's asking, we are struggling with technical stuff about creating a workspace and to have the roles approved. Is there a technical staff that can help us?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, of course. We are struggling with technical stuff about creating a workspace and to have the roles approved. Is there a technical staff that can help us?
Diane, I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, but again, as part of the programs, you can certainly bring on staff members to support the project. We can't fund any projects that, talking about workspaces that involve like new construction or anything like that. But again, to reiterate, the goal of the CARSI program is to improve governance in Costa Rica, improve transparency, accountability, improve government services, create a situation where stakeholders such as civil society, general population have better faith that the government is acting responsibly and in the best interests of their citizens. So I hope your project can fall into that category. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Paula. She's asking, what happens if the sub-awardee do not have the NCAGE and unique entity identifier by the time of submission, but the main awardee does have it?
That's a great question, Paula. We might need to review and answer that later. I think, before a sub-awardee can receive funding from you, the principal awardee, it needs to have a UEI and NCAGE number registered. You as the principal awardee will be responsible for ensuring that. That's part of the terms and conditions of the contract. I know we funded awards before where the sub-awardees were not identified at the time of the proposal. And so, that is a process that I think can happen later. Now, if you know specifically who your sub-awardees are and you can include that information in the proposal, even better. But if your proposal is funded and you decide to work with a sub-awardee and they don't have those registrations yet, we just need to make sure that they have them before any U.S. government funds gets directed through your organization to the sub-awardee. Thank you.
Thank you. Ali Joe is asking, can an UN agency be the primary applicant, or is it necessary to be listed as a sub-awardee of a civil society organization?
That is a great question. I can tell you, I don't think we've worked with any UN agencies, in Costa Rica thus far. I'm not an expert on the structure of UN organizations, but I would advise you to go to the eligible organization portion of the NOFO, which I think specifically states that you are either a nonprofit organization that can be registered in the United States, Costa Rica, internationally, or that you're an academic institution. I think that's the eligible organizations that we're working with. So I would put the question back on you and try to determine, do you fit into those categories? Because again, I'm not an expert on the UN structure, so I would ask, that you ask yourselves, do we fit into those categories?
Thank you. We have a question from Nancy, who says, hello, on page 12 of the NOFO, it states, if an organization plans to issue a subcontract or sub-award, those sub-awardees must also have a unique entity number. Could you please clarify if proposed sub-awardees must have a unique entity number at the time of the proposal submission? Thank you.
I think Nancy has a different question, right? I'm seeing it on the screen here.
There's another one below.
Oh, there's another one below.
Okay. Yeah, there's a second question. Yeah, I think we solved that earlier. The second question from Nancy says, hello, on page 10 of the NOFO, it states, must be registered in the country of operation. We are a US-based NGO registered in the US. Could you please clarify what registration is required and at what point in the award process?
That's a great question. I might need to get you more details on that in the chat later, but I will tell you that we have worked with US NGOs that are, based and operate in the US and have funded them directly. As far as their registration in country, off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure. We can promise to get you an answer on that one. It's a great question. Roberto, are you aware of the answer?
No, I am not, and we will definitely get back to Nancy with.
Okay, Nancy, we promise that we will post in the chat later. We'll confirm with our policy experts in Washington. But at a minimum, we know we can work with your organization if you're a U.S.-based organization. As far as what type of local registrations are required, when that is required, let me get back in touch with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Jesse. We're receiving a lot of questions, so I will switch to LinkedIn in order to cover as many as possible today.
We love our LinkedIn watchers as well, not just the Facebook Live. So thanks.
Yeah, and thank you so much for the LinkedIn users as well. And Sergio is asking, so to be clear, these proposals are submitted by local governments or organizations only?
Great question. So these proposals are submitted by organizations, nonprofit organizations, academic institutions, sort of in partnership with government institutions, right? So the primary applicant who is drafting the proposal and who will be our number one point of contact throughout the life of the project should not be the government. Oftentimes, or nearly all the time, our nonprofit partners are working with either one government institution or multiple. So you'll be working with them throughout the proposal process, getting a letter of support showing that this project can be sustainable after the project ends, but the government should not be submitting any type of proposal.
Thank you, Jesse. I think I will combine two questions from Natalia and Roxy, which are very similar. And these are about what are the proposals about. So Roxy is asking, can you mention some examples of previous proposals? Where were the focus of these proposals? Thank you.
Great question, Roxy. We've got a lot of really successful, fantastic programs that we could highlight for you. Two come to mind. They're more recent. But in one example, we're working with a nonprofit based in the United States that's been working with the Ministry of Hacienda to improve transparency of public procurement. So they have created a software in conjunction with the Ministry of Hacienda that is public facing, that makes public procurement data widely available and transparent to all, so that if you are a journalist or interested in receiving public contracts, if you're a small business owner, or you're just a concerned citizen wanting to know where your government is spending its money, this new online tool called the Observatory was funded by CARSI program. So we think that's a really strong example of e-government, digitalization of services, transparency, accountability, really strong governance project. We've worked with multiple organizations that support the work of ASADAs. So as you all know, ASADAs are, municipal community community organizations that provide water services, typically to rural populations outside the Central Valley. Again, not officially part of the government, but providing an essential service of drinking water. And so nonprofits have worked with asadas, larger groups of asadas, to build capacity and achieve economies of scale. So those are two examples, but there's a ton of examples. We funded a few programs last year that will improve the government's ability to coordinate and track illegal fishing. So maritime protected areas governance, which was a priority of the Costa Rican government and a strong U.S. environmental objective. That was an example from some of the projects we funded last year.
Thank you, Jesse. I'm seeing a couple of messages thanking the U.S. government for our efforts in helping governance in Costa Rica. Thank you, Carolina. Thank you, Carlena, for your messages and for joining us today. And then Roxy is asking a second question. I have a program that aims to bring access to internet and knowledge in Earth observation data for an indigenous community in Talamanca. Can this proposal be submitted for this funding? Thank you for this opportunity.
Great question. It sounds like a really good project. One thing we won't do today is take your questions on, is my proposal a good idea? Because we want to be fair to everyone and transparent in our selection process. One thing I'll say, hearing your program idea, is we would want to make sure that there is a governance relation, right? So is this helping improve a local government or the national government's ability to provide those services to those indigenous populations? Because if it is improving the government's ability to provide connectivity, that to me sounds like it's got a governance component at least. So just make sure that it's not just your NGO working on its own, and I'm getting away from your proposal right now, but an NGO that would provide a computer lab in a rural part of the country to assist students that really need it. That's a great project. But if it's just the NGO directly providing these services to that population, that's not really improving governance, and there's no sustainability of the government continuing to offer those services once the project ends. So just always keep in mind, make sure that your project doesn't fall too much into community development, economic development, social programs. It really needs to be improving governance.
Thank you, Jesse. We have a great question from Kenneth. He's asking, the letters generated with our partner institutions that we want to work with CARSI must be issued in English. How many letters can we attach?
No, they can be in Spanish. Great question. So we don't expect you to request your partners write something in English. The rest of the proposal should be in English, though, with the exception maybe of I think the required audit document that's listed in the required documents in the NOFO. But you're welcome to submit as many letters as possible. Now, we'd really encourage you to focus on the key institutional partners and not just send us 25 letters of support. What we're looking for are the key partners that are going to be a part of the project, that they are writing more than just a pro forma, we support this project letter, right? Let us see some details on how they support it. Let us see some details of how there's skin in the game and how this project will be sustainable after your organization has finished the CARSI program. So that's what we're really looking for. There isn't a maximum number. It's more about the quality and which partners are sending them.
Thank you, Jesse. I think that was the last question we have from LinkedIn. I'm switching back to Facebook. So Sylvia is asking, are overhead costs acceptable?
Yes, there is, again, please review the NOFO. All of this information is in there, but indirect costs are a part of any proposal. So you'll be submitting to us a proposed budget, a detailed budget, which will show where all of the CARSI funds will be going, where your potential cost share funds would be going. Those are funds that you're bringing to the table to support the program. And yes, we absolutely expect that indirect costs would be part of that proposal.
Thank you, Jesse. Paula has a great question as well. She says, hey, we have problems registering our organization in SAM.gov since the address location doesn't match with the NCAGE address. However, we can type SAM address in NCH because it does not fit.
Paolo, that is a great question. That's a uniquely Tico question, right? Because of the very interesting address system you have in Costa Rica. Roberto actually did a lot of work on this last year, so I'm going to pass the baton over to him to answer this question. Thank you, Roberto.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Paula, yes, this is a great question that Jesse mentioned, and what I suggest is starting with filling up the NCH form, because it is the shorter form that we have. So you can put a simplified version of your address there and then move on to sam.gov with the smaller line that will definitely fit. But that's a great question and hope you are able to solve it. Next question from Ali Joe. She says, hey there, thank you for holding this session. Does the project need to have a distinct component that addresses anti-corruption in addition to activities that improve the provision of services, or could a better provision of services be considered as a means to reduce the risk of corruption and improve government transparency?
That's a fantastic question, and I think it shows you really understand what we're looking for in these proposals. No, it doesn't directly have to have a corruption focus. And like you said, it can be improving services, improving efficiencies that will result in better governance, less opportunities for corruption, more transparency. So no, we put in the NOFO, a specific portion of what we're looking for. We highlight some potential ideas like anti-corruption programs at the municipal level, or programs related to climate change governance. But it can be any program that improves governance, whether that's through services or transparency or accountability or increased stakeholder participation. It's really, we'll be looking at the strongest proposals that match, that really tie to a governance objective, tie to U.S. objectives, and have, notable impact and sustainability.
Thank you, Jesse. Demesio is asking, we are in the solar industry looking to contribute to reduce the financial costs in order to reactivate the Costa Rican economy. Do you have an opportunity to apply for our projects?
Hi, Demesio, great question. And that's one thing I haven't brought up, but programs that increase government revenues so that they have more money to spend on the population, those are great projects. Now, related to your solar business, again, just make sure that you're an eligible organization, and make sure that the proposal has a governance component, right? And so if you're working with, again, if you're an eligible organization that's working with some government institution to use solar clean energy to increase revenues for the government, if there's sustained impact there, that could potentially, fit into the box of what we're looking for.
Okay, thank you so much, Jesse. I don't see further questions for the moment. So I have a question for you. Can an organization apply in several countries in Central America?
Thanks, Roberto. So the CARSI program, the CARSI Small Grants Program, is offered also in Belize and Panama. So yes, you can apply in multiple countries. You can technically submit multiple proposals in Costa Rica. What's really important is that your organization has the bandwidth. So we'll obviously be talking with our colleagues, the grants officers in Belize and Panama. And if we, have 3 strong applications from one organization, we're going to make sure that, the staff you say is dedicated to the project is not, listed as full-time on every project, right? And again, you could potentially submit multiple proposals in Costa Rica, but we probably recommend that you just prioritize one strong proposal and make sure that you have the bandwidth to carry it out.
Thank you, Jesse. Could an organization apply with several proposals?
I think I just addressed that one. Yep.
Apologize.
No worries.
Could an organization join efforts with a municipality? We addressed that one. Who can be a grantee and a sub-grantee?
So any organization that falls under the eligibility criteria stated in the NOFO can be a grantee or a sub-grantee. So again, please read the NOFO for those joining late. All the information we've given today, we'll keep this video on Facebook. We'll post it to the embassy's funding website. But everything we're sharing today, if you have a question, the majority of those answers can be found in the notice of funding opportunities. So please read it thoroughly all the way through multiple times, and hopefully your answers will be addressed.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Are there specific areas that we are allowed to work or not work in? And please list specific examples of restrictions that maybe are not allowed.
Okay, great question. So as I mentioned at the top of this program today, we can't provide any funding that's going to support police or military activity. I realize Costa Rica doesn't have a military, but anything that's law enforcement, again, the embassy and the U.S. government spend a lot of funds on supporting law enforcement cooperation with our Costa Rican colleagues. There are some awards related to those programs, but we're not going to talk about those today. And CARSI funds your proposals shouldn't have a law enforcement component, because there are restrictions on our side of what we can fund with these with CARSI money. We can't fund any new construction. So, if you're looking to build a new theater in a municipality, again, that'd be a stretch on governance, but also we can't fund any new construction. Let's say you're going to be having a ceremony with, announcing the launch of an accomplishment that was achieved as part of your CARSI program. You can't serve any alcohol or purchase alcohol with CARSI funds. So those are some of the items that come to mind on things we can or can't fund.
Thank you so much. One more thing. Can you clarify what a NICRA is?
A NICRA. So NICRA, I'm going to have to read this, is a negotiated indirect cost rate agreement. Someone asked earlier about overhead costs, indirect costs. That should be part of your budget proposal. Again, we put in the NOFO, and part of the attachments, there's like a sample budget. So you should see everything that you should be including in the budget. A NICRA is, if you don't know what a NICRA is, don't worry about it. You're not likely going to negotiate one before the end of the month when you have to submit your proposal. But for larger NGOs that potentially work with the U.S. government frequently, let's say USAID, they might, if they receive a lot of grants from USAID, these organizations might have negotiated, for all of our projects, we're going to have this percentage go towards indirect costs, right? So that's what a NICRA is. We gladly accept your valid NICRAs. So if you're an NGO that has this, include it as part of your proposal, and we will know that you have that, and know that that's why your budget is structured accordingly. Thanks.
Thank you, Jesse. Carlos Enrique is asking, Costa Rica companies in the technological area can access to these funds?
Again, if you're a private sector company, probably not, if that's the question. We really like programs that focus on technology and improving the government's technology, open government, facilitated, application processes, government services that are, easy to apply online or on your cell phone, digitalization of government actions that improves transparency. But so maybe, you could be involved in a project, or if you're a nonprofit organization, we can fund your support to governments looking to digitalize their services. But if you're a for-profit technology company, likely not.
Thank you, Jesse. I have another question for you. What % of the total funds can be used for salaries, for example, hiring staff for the project?
We don't have any, rule that, this percentage can go towards salaries. We understand that as an NGO implementing this project anywhere from 1 year to 2 years, you're going to need to be paying your staff to implement the project. And we fully support that. So, we use it to your best judgment to determine accurately what staffing costs will be. Obviously, we like to see those on the lower side. We're not looking to fund a project where 75% goes to the NGO's salaries. So again, no rule, and hopefully, it will be the proper amount that it's not a majority of the funds, but making sure your employees are taken care of.
Thank you, Jesse. Another question: what are the indirect costs?
Indirect costs. Great. Those are sort of the overhead costs that someone asked about earlier. So some examples would be office space, utilities. Like, let's say you're an NGO and you're working on multiple programs. Your whole team is not going to be dedicated to your CARSI program, but you have office expenses, you have utility expenses, health insurance expenses, whatever it might be. Those are sort of the indirect costs that help support your organization's implementation of the project, but don't directly, further the priorities or the objectives listed in your proposal.
Thank you. We have a great question from Jose. Are public universities initiatives eligible for these funds?
They are. So if you look at the eligible organizations, I believe you'll see that we have academic institutions there, like universities. We've worked with universities in the past. Just remember, there has to be a governance component. So even if the university has got a fantastic program, research initiative that will develop towards policy that's improving, whatever service in Costa Rica, we want to make sure that your proposal is improving governance and not just a one-off project from the university. So just make sure it has that tie to improving governance. Again, look at the examples in the NOFO of some of the examples we give you of what we consider to improve governance. And absolutely, we'd be happy to work. Costa Rica's got great universities, so we'd love to work with you.
Thank you, Jesse. I am not seeing further questions, neither in LinkedIn or Facebook. And we're about to close, so I don't know if you want to provide a close message for any applicant out there.
Yeah, but Roberto, thank you for being my co-host today. Thanks to everyone who turned in for your interest in this program. At the U.S. Embassy, we're really proud of the impact it's had in improving governance in Costa Rica across the country, across a whole bunch of different fields. And so, again, my number one advice that I gave at the top, and I'll close out with now, is please review the notice of funding opportunity for all of the information on what we're looking for in a proposal. Please get your proposal in before the deadline. Don't save it for the last second. Make sure you do those registrations that I flagged that should be that are timely. Get those done ASAP. We've sort of passed the time period. We have we want to be transparent in our questions and not be that we receive from potential applicants and be giving information that in excess of information that might give an unfair advantage to any organizations. And so we had a question deadline of May 1st. All of the questions that we receive via email, we will be publishing on our website, the funding website, and we'll be emailing back to the NGOs that wrote us with all of the answers. So all of the questions you asked, or even the ones you didn't ask that others asked, you'll get all of those answers. So everyone's getting the same amount of information. Now, for those of you who asked really excellent questions today that we couldn't answer, we do commit to getting you those answers in this chat later in the day or by tomorrow. And again, thank you for your interest. And we know we're going to receive another strong crop of proposals this year. Have a great day.